I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Prayer, a key element during the Fortnight for Freedom.
There's a problem in our nation where there are some who would seek to marginalize the voice of the church, and we're going to stand up for our voice, whether it be on the HHS mandate that would require us to pay for pharmaceutics, which we deem immoral, or to provide medical benefits to same-sex couples.
Plus, an effort to keep soldiers close to their faith. And the Brooklyn Diocese gets a few good men.
It's an incredible experience. I can't really comprehend it all right now. It still hasn't sunk in yet.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. It is now day 5 of the Fortnight for Freedom, a 2-week period of prayer and action. The U.S. bishops announced the nationwide effort back in April as an organized response to what they say is an attempt to marginalize religious liberty. Arguably one of the biggest of the recent threats is the federal government contraception mandate, which would force most religious organizations to act against their beliefs by providing their employees with coverage for contraception, sterilization, and some abortion-inducing drugs. Now, part of the Fortnight efforts involves special masses, including one here in Brooklyn this past Friday at the Church of St. Joseph in Prospect Heights.
We're at the Church of St. Joseph tonight. We're kicking off this Fortnight for Freedom by beginning with the Holy Mass and then a period of prayer throughout the night. Fortnight is 14 days of prayer, but we don't end here at this fortnight. This is really the jumping off point to say that there's a problem in our nation where there are some who would seek to marginalize the voice of the church, and we're going to stand up for our voice, whether it be on the HHS mandate that would require us to pay for pharmaceutics, which we deem immoral, or to provide medical benefits to same-sex couples.
I'm understanding that this country was founded on certain principles, and those principles are being challenged through the Obamacare and through the health law.
Many in the United States today would see to be offensive that you talk about religious freedom on this day. There's a real crisis of religious freedom taking place in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia. There's a real crisis of religious freedom taking place in China. How can you Americans say that you're struggling with religious freedom?
I think that the greatest strategy, the greatest thing that we can do is the Mass. You know, it's what makes us, it's what keeps us alive, it's what we're fighting for. And so the Mass is what allows us to be advocates. The Mass is what allows us to be, to be educated, passionate citizens of the country.
Today, there are little temptations for us, little accommodations that are being asked of us, which in and of themselves maybe don't seem that significant. But after all, what was the little accommodation that was being asked of Sir Thomas More? What was the little accommodation that could have easily been solved if he had only gone to a wedding and celebrated the king's immoral marriage to another queen?
The fact that we have to contribute, that our premium, healthcare premium has to contribute to certain services for women, including abortions, I am completely and utterly against that. I don't want any of my money going into something that I don't believe in.
Brothers and sisters, there are threats to your religious freedom and to my religious freedom. It's not the threat to our opportunity to worship. The threat to your freedom and to my freedom is the threat to live according to the dictates of our conscience.
I am pro-life, I'm pro-birth, and I believe in life at conception, and I don't want to see any girls hurt.
Abortion is as bad as slavery and Holocaust were, and with slavery and Holocaust, we had new generations, but with abortions, we're wiping out, hundreds of generations to come.
I think that this Mass is important because it doesn't only show unity, it shows that we believe in prayer.
We know how many people turn out tonight. It's been a miserable day. There's thunder, there's lightning, but it doesn't matter. Jesus started with 12 people, and the 12 that he started with were the ones who built the church.
And stay tuned, there's more Currents ahead. The day's headlines are next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublis. Could advancements in prenatal testing lead to an increase in abortions? Some pro-lifers say yes, referencing a study of non-invasive genetic testing procedures at the University of Washington. Scientists at U of W say they were able to crack the entire code of a human fetus using only a sample of blood from its mother and a saliva smear from its father, a significant step toward standard comprehensive testing of babies in the womb for genetic defects. Now, the tests also potentially provide a window into non-medical heritable traits such as hair and eye color, athletic prowess, and even IQ. Now, pro-lifers argue the test is an enhanced search and destroy diagnostic tool because it expands the genetic information available on unborn babies, giving parents up to 3,500 genetic possibilities to weigh into a decision about whether or not to have an abortion. Academics say it increases the factor of coercion in pregnancy care, citing studies in the New England Journal of Medicine and Journal of Medical Ethics that state, quote, when parents are at risk of having a child whose life would be worse than non-existence, the parents have a duty to use prenatal testing and a duty to terminate an affected pregnancy. Well, over in Jackson, Mississippi, a new law could force the only abortion clinic there to shut its doors forever. After July 1st, a new Mississippi law goes into effect requiring all physicians associated with an abortion clinic to have admitting privileges at local hospitals. Now, the majority of physicians who work at the Jackson's Women's Health Organization do not currently meet that requirement, and 3 out of 4 of them don't even live in Mississippi. Doctors at the clinic have been applying to local hospitals for admission. If that does not happen, state officials are bracing for a lawsuit. Well, some advice for Catholic voters: when you head to the ballot box, don't forget about your faith. This message from Carl Anderson, leader of the Knights of Columbus. Knight referred to the political climate right now as sad and said that the faithful should vote on the full range of Catholic social teaching. He said in order for this to be accomplished, church members must stop supporting candidates who advocate policies that are intrinsically evil. Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. One survey certainly validates that adage, a fact that may not bode too well for Mitt Romney. According to a new Gallup poll, nearly 1 in 5 Americans say they would not vote for a Mormon president, a percentage that has hardly budged since 1967. Now, just how this anti-Mormon bias will affect Mitt Romney, the presumed GOP presidential nominee, is unclear, since just 57% of Americans know that he is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Gallup writes, quote, this suggests the possibility that as Romney's faith becomes better known this summer and fall, it could become more of a negative factor. Still, Gallup noted that John F. Kennedy won the presidency in 1960, despite the 21% of Americans who said they would not vote for a Catholic president. In other news, the Vatican has selected a Fox News reporter as its new media advisor. Rome Reports has more on that.
The Vatican has hired an American journalist as its new media advisor. His name is Greg Burke, a 52-year-old who, up until a few days ago, worked as a Fox News correspondent. Before that, he worked as a reporter for Time magazine. He's been based in Rome for over a decade, covering everything from politics in Europe to the Middle East and the Vatican. The last layperson to be hired to a senior communication position was Joaquin Navarro Valls, a Spanish journalist who was hired under John Paul II. Burke, who was originally from St. Louis, Missouri, will directly report to Archbishop Angelo Becciu, who serves as the Deputy Secretary of State and is the third-ranking person in the Vatican. Burke will be an advisor on several different levels, including the Holy See's press office and the Vatican Secretariat of State. But Father Federico Lombardi will continue to be the Vatican spokesperson.
And meanwhile, Pope Benedict met with a group of Colombian bishops last week and advised them on how to keep Catholics Catholic. He also spoke about the increasing religious pluralism and evangelical presence. The Holy Father stated that one of the biggest reasons people are leaving the church is because of what non-Catholic groups believe. Benedict added that the church must look to become, quote, better believers, more pious, affable, and welcoming in our parishes and communities so that no one will feel distant or excluded. Now, while this could help repair a perceived sense of belonging, Benedict made sure to clarify that keeping the church's tradition is also important. And finally, Cardinal Bertone calls for free AIDS treatment in Africa, and Rome Reports has more on that.
The Vatican says that medicine used to treat AIDS patients in Africa should be provided for free. Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, the Vatican Secretary of State, said this on behalf of Benedict XVI during the 8th International Dream Conference in Rome. He said an entire generation cannot be lost to the AIDS epidemic. He then added that the Church will continue its work in providing education, food, medicine, and care for HIV and AIDS patients. Benedict XVI has visited Africa twice, first in 2009 and then in November of 2011. Despite its challenges, the Pope described Africa as a continent of hope. Back in 2004, Blessed John Paul II created the Good Samaritan Foundation, which is managed by the Pontifical Council for Health and Pastoral Care. The council manages donations to help patients who need it the most. Cardinal Bertone also highlighted that almost 30% of HIV and AIDS care centers throughout the world are managed by the Catholic Church.
Stay tuned, there's more currents after the break. Coming up, it's Faith on the Front Line. Welcome back. As the Fortnight for Freedom continues here in the U.S., servicemen and women are fighting a much different battle to preserve the freedoms we enjoy. More than 272,000 of these active duty men and women identify as Catholic, another 151,000 are Baptist, and 322,000 more identify as Christians without a denomination preference. And being away from home, serving in harm's way means less opportunities to worship. But at least one organization is providing these servicemen and women the chance to keep their faith close to them. The organization, Frontline Faith, provides MP3s with recordings for both Catholic and Protestant soldiers. To find out more, I spoke earlier with the founder and director of Frontline Faith, Sherry Lamonte. Sherry, can you tell us really quickly what Frontline Faith is?
Oh, Liz, it would be my pleasure. Frontline Faith is actually a little MP3 player with little earbuds that has 7.5 hours of Catholic content on the player. So whoever listens can hear a Catholic Mass. We give these to our military, so there's a warrior rosary, prayers, blessings, a talk from Fulton J. Sheen, blessings from our Archbishop of our U.S. military services, and stories from the military for the military. And Liz, these aren't all Pollyanna stories. This is what happened to me. This is how I handled it. And if I can do it, you can do it. So they're stories of hope and inspiration.
So there's a very personal aspect to it, and I could hear that in the sound of your voice. How did you come up with the idea for Frontline Faith? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I was talking to a mom who told me that her son was in Afghanistan, had been there for 9 months, and had at that time not seen a chaplain. Not a Catholic chaplain, but any chaplain. And I literally thought, I just could not imagine living in constant danger, really, without spiritual support, and then the strength that spiritual support would give me. And it really brought me out of my chair, so to speak. And I just thought, we have to do something, and found out that there's 1/4 of our military, over 330,000 men and women, are Catholic, and we only have 279 chaplains that serve all of them.
And it's such an important message that you're bringing to our troops. How do you choose the mass recordings? How do you choose the hymns? How do you choose the inspirational speeches? How is that put together and produced?
With a lot of prayer and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I can't say I do this. I'm just the vessel, and I really listen and pray. And I talk to the military, and I talk to the military parents and the families, and I listen to what they tell me. I get emails now from the military that say, just before I started talking with you, I had a call from a woman in Yonkers, New York, and she said, we have a a woman in our parish who's in Afghanistan, and she's writing back telling us how alone she feels.
Oh, my goodness.
She needs one of your players. It's going out to her this afternoon.
And I also want to mention to our viewing audience, it's not just for the Roman Catholic faith that you produce these MP3s. You also produce a Protestant version?
Yes, and that came about because we had so many Protestant chaplains calling us or emailing us and saying, can I have 200 of your players? Can I have 300 of your players? And I went to my bishop here in Austin and asked for permission to do a Protestant player. And again, we went to, it's at the time of what is recommended to you. We went to those people, and the Protestant pastors and their prayers, and we all pray to the same God, and,
yes.
and they sound an awful lot alike. But we want to make sure that that we address anything particular to them.
And Sherry, you break down the numbers from the Department of Defense, and I was actually surprised to see how many active military identify themselves as Christian without a denomination preference compared to, say, the Roman Catholic and the Baptist. Do you find that there are quite a few who convert once their service begins, or maybe once they hear the MP3s?
Well, actually, we've had some stories like that of reconversion of, I grew up a Catholic, and I don't know what happened, but along the way, I lost my faith. But thank you. I remember now what it feels like to hear a Mass and those kind of stories. And I really don't know all of what's happening because I can't get my mind around it, for one thing. And for the second thing, I think all I'm supposed to do is worry about getting them into the hands of our military. But I know our chaplains have told us that this is the best aid they've ever had. We call it, care packages for their souls.
Well, what can people do to help you get those care packages to the souls, to our active military? How can people get involved?
Oh, Liz, thank you for asking, because they can go to the FrontlineFaithProject.org, and first of all, they can donate online. It costs $24 for us to put a player in the hands of our military, and that includes shipping and not only shipping overseas, but shipping here in the States. Mm-hmm. There's such a need for spiritual encouragement, that we need to continue this for when they come home, because they're returning to their communities with real psychological issues.
Well, Sherry, it's a very important thing that it sounds like you do, so thank you so much. I guess this is how technology, patriotism, and divine intervention come together for a very good cause. Thank you.
You've put it so well, but I feel like they put their life on the line for us, and it's now our duty to help support. Their words are, I am starving for spiritual support. So let's feed our troops. Go to FrontlineFaithProject.org, and if you can raise money in your church for us, you can donate yourself. There's a lot of ways you can help, and just give me a call and let me know, and we'll put you to work.
All right. Thank you so much, Sherry, for championing the cause. We really appreciate it, and thank you for joining us today. I'm sure we'll talk with you again soon.
I hope so. God bless. Thank you so much, Liz.
You're very welcome. And stay tuned. There's more Currents ahead. When we return, they're called to serve in the Brooklyn Diocese.
A man who's 63 years old, who is a custom enforcement agent, of Irish background. Another kid who's of Polish background. Another guy who is coming from a Filipino background. This is the diversity of our city, and I'm happy that they are my brothers in the priesthood.
And finally tonight, this past weekend was very special for the Diocese of Brooklyn as it welcomed 6 new priests into its fold. Bishop DeMarcio ordained the 6 men to serve Catholic churches in Brooklyn and Queens. The bishop even remarked that a record number of priests from throughout the diocese turned out for the ordination mass, which took place this past Saturday at St. James Cathedral in downtown Brooklyn.
My dear sons, you are to be raised to the order of priesthood. On your part, you must exercise the sacred duty of teaching in the name of Christ the teacher.
It's a beautiful day for the Diocese of Brooklyn. That's 6 men ranging in age from 26 to 63 years old
heard the call of the Lord and came forward to work among his people here in Brooklyn and Queens.
Sergey, do you promise respect and obedience to me and my successors?
Bishop DiMarzio sent me to John Paul II University in Lublin, and I finished my theology preparing, and today Bishop ordained me to Diocese Brooklyn for the American, Polish, Ukrainian, and Russian people.
It was just overwhelmingly emotional. I mean, it was just knowing that on this day I became a priest.
Probably the most powerful for me was when I was prostrate on the floor with the singing of the Litany of the Saints. Just really trying to open myself up to the help of all of those holy ones who have gone before us. And then the laying on of hands, first by the bishop and then all the other priests that came by. It was just a warm feeling, and then one that brought peace as well. I was a little nervous and anxious, but this brought a sense of calm. It was amazing, it really was.
What a beautiful gift that was for me to lay hands on some of my closest friends and to lay hands on these new priests. And then give them the sign of peace, the kiss of peace, to welcome them into the priesthood that I've only known now for 2 weeks, and to see their joy. It's a very exciting time for them. Today's going to be an exhausting day. Tomorrow's going to be even more exhausting with the first masses and the blessings. It's just a great, fun weekend, and it's the beginning of the rest of their lives.
It's an incredible experience. I can't really comprehend it all right now. It still hasn't sunk in yet. The oils did, but the fact that I'm a priest hasn't hit yet. After the ordination here, I come to the pavilion to bless all the people who came for the ordination, to give my first priestly blessing. And it's really just a beautiful experience.
It's an awesome event to be a mother of priest. And the liturgy was so wonderful. The event is glorious. And it's so important that there are more priests now in the Diocese of Brooklyn. And it's really a great privilege. I'm humbled by the fact that one of them is a son of mine, Gino.
To be blessing people is one of the greatest privileges and the blessings. It's overwhelming. I mean, it's something that none of us are worthy of doing, but God gives us the grace to be able to really bestow blessings upon others.
Congratulations to the Brooklyn Diocese's 6 newest priests. And on Sunday, we went to the first Mass celebrated by one of those priests. We will have a report on that on tomorrow night's program. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also follow us on Twitter and connect with us on Facebook. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. We leave you tonight with more from Saturday's ordination Mass at St. James Cathedral and a celebratory request from Bishop DiMarzio. Thank you for watching and have a good night.
How about some Brooklyn noise now?